Welcome back everybody, Chris Bricks here, and today we're doing part 2 of our McLaren build. That's right, we had our Speed Champions 2-for-1 set. As you could see, new shirt, so it's a new day and it's a new build. Now last week we had the McLaren F1. That was a great build. I really like how that car looks, especially in the McLaren orange. That's a good looking car. There's a number of stickers on it, and the stickers are a little bit more metallic than the actual car itself, but you could get all my feedback in the last video on how I thought of it, but that one there, definitely worth it for this set. Now, the other car that comes in the set is the more futuristic McLaren Solus GT. Now this one, I'll be honest, I don't care about, but I had to have this set because of the McLaren F1. I mean, who wouldn't, right? So that's why I asked for the set. That's why I got it as a gift. This one is just kind of one of those bonuses of maybe it'll surprise you. Maybe it'll look good once it's built. I don't know. I've obviously seen pictures of it. I can see it right here. You know, doesn't get me as excited as a F1 LM. So we already have the box open, as you know. 2 bags. Definitely most of the pieces though went into the McLaren F1. I could definitely see there are considerably less pieces for the Solus GT, so hopefully it'll be a quicker build. I think last week it was roughly 48 minutes for the McLaren F1. I anticipate this one is going to be less. Good thing about this set though, look at that. What is that? 7 stickers go on the Solus GT. That's probably the one great perk about this. Less stickers. And you know me. The less stickers, the happier I am. I'd rather it be printed on all the pieces and I put it together. As ridiculous as it sounds, it works better that way. It has more of the flow with the graphics. You don't have these gaps where if you accidentally put it on crooked, it goes sideways and it looks terrible and then you gotta stare at it the rest of your life. So, only 7 stickers, so that's promising. Not many pieces, so I guess let's build. is done. You're looking at about 21 minutes, 16 seconds. And I gotta say, it's been interesting on this bag. Not your traditional setup when it comes to the Speed Champion here. I think it's because it's a single-seater. They really went out of the box with how to put this thing together. And honestly, I feel like a little overcomplicated. That's just my 2 cents, okay? But I felt like this could have been a little easier to build for what the end result is. Kind of looks like you're building some kind of hovercraft spaceship thing going right now. Honestly, without the little wheel inserts here and the wheel arches, you would never know this was a car. You'd think this is some kind of spaceship or something like that. But yeah, overall, a little overly complicated on some of the things, especially with like the pieces here and here. These ones, they could have been put in an easier way. I just wasn't happy with how they decided to do it. I mean, yeah, it's cool to see how many different ways you could put on fenders on these Speed Champions, but sometimes when it's overcomplicated, it just loses its pleasant experience. But we're most of the way through. There was a lot of pieces in that bag. There's less pieces in bag 2, so I expect it to take less time unless there's some more overly complicated ways to put things together. But you get a decent amount of pieces left over. As you can see, make it rain a little bit. Probably about 8 to 10 pieces left over. Not too bad. Of course, here we have Brittany. She's upset because she didn't get the McLaren F1 like Logan did. But she's waiting on her Solus GT, and she seems very excited, very happy. Now, as you notice, she has a hairdo. She has a ponytail. Will she fit in her car? That will be one of our tests at the end of this build. So let's get the bag 2 and let's build. The second and final bag of the McLaren Solus GT is done. You're looking at about 18 minutes, 19 seconds with an overall time of 39 minutes, 35 seconds. So definitely, as you can see, something we're going to get to in a second. But Definitely saves you about 9 to 10 minutes compared to the McLaren F1 right there. And you could kind of see why. Not much to this car. Nothing to, just kind of there. And, on my thumbnail for this video, I asked, does it live up to that competition? And the answer is no. It does not. Now, I know a bunch of you are going to say, well, Chris Bricks, you already hated this thing from the beginning. Of course, you're not going to give it a good rating or enjoy it or anything. You just wanted the McLaren F1. True. You caught me on that one, but I did hold out hope that this would prove me wrong. That would be one of those builds that are like, I'll get it because it's a speed champion. It adds to my collection, but it surprised me. Hey, this is great. This was fun. And it just wasn't. This build, and I'm sorry if some of you out there have built this, you love it, you think it looks great, and that this is my opinion. This is just my experience, okay? You may have a completely different one. But first off, let's look at Brittany here. Now, if she was ever in an accident, the steering wheel is right up in her face. It is going to smash her face, break her jaw, whatever it may be. That is not a good driving position. And that's with her pushed all the way down, reclined back. Now, as you can see, when she sits like this fit on great because it doesn't. Once again, another speed champion where the haircut cannot work with the car. See? That's as tight as you're going to get it down. And the steering wheel is blocking it, and her hairdo is blocking it. I mean, she has this amazing ponytail. She has it combed to the side, and she can't even drive her car. She has to do a windscreenless vehicle drive. Bugs are going to get in her face. Rocks are going to hit her. It's just not a great experience. So, if you want your minifig to fit, they're going to have to go bald or helmet. That's going to be your choice. And that's quite unfortunate, to be honest with you. Why give them the hairdos if they can't even fit in the car? I wish LEGO would run that test right at the end when they build these prototypes. And then you wouldn't have to hear me complain about it when I run into it in a video. Now, this is an older set. I believe it's 2023, 2024, somewhere around for this set. So it is an older one, and the more recent sets I bought actually fit some of the hairdos. Now, they're not as elaborate as some of these older ones are, but so we'll see if that's something they actually did end up fixing. But building the car, there was just a lot of pieces that were overly complicated that didn't need to be that complex when putting it together. The wing here, cool looking wing. I'll give it to them. Cool looking wing, right? But I have these like 4 prongs that go across it. You shove it in there, and the first time I did, everything broke, and I got to put it back together and try reattaching. These side pieces here and here are both held on to what looks like a wrench, a sharp wrench that connects into a prong, and both of those broke while putting those together because I didn't necessarily put it in the exact angle it needed to be. So it's just like a lot of little things that just made it kind of annoying. I'd rate it a 3 in difficulty because of all these unique ways they were trying to make it different for a build, and I just don't think it translated well. But that's my opinion. Maybe you did enjoy it. Let me know in the comments, of course. Stickers, only 7 of them. Great. Pretty basic stickers, nothing too exciting. A little McLaren emblem, a little shock absorber there. And yeah, nothing too crazy with that. Another thing I don't like about this is the wheel situation. When you look at this side profile, it kind of looks like a car I drew when I was 5 years old. Like, I don't know if it's just me, but the wheels seem way too small for this. And I understand it's a standard sized speed champion wheel, but they don't feel this small on other ones. So I don't know why. Maybe because how bulky this comes out and how flat this is. Kind of looks like when you were a kid, you just drew a small rectangle and put circle, circle on there. And I just don't care for it. I don't care for how it looks. This one's probably going to go in my converted closet display case of in the shadows, you know. We're not going to have this one out, but we'll have the McLaren F1 out for sure because that is worth it. And as for pieces, yeah, decent amount of pieces, not too bad. You get an option between 5-spoke and, honestly, I didn't count how many spoke, but the many spoke. I feel with on a lot of the modern cars, especially ones that kind of look like Le Mans, I would go with the lot of spoke ones because, I don't know, just feel it looks better with it. But yeah, that's all I gotta say about this one. Can't say, I mean, I'm glad it's one more to the collection, right? Can't complain about that. And I got McLaren F1 out of it, so well worth it because of that. But this does not compete. If you want to end on a happy note, build this first, then the McLaren. Or if you just want to build the McLaren, turn this into something else, I say go for it. Well, it's the end of the time, so remember, if you like what you see here, subscribe, write a comment, hit that little bell to get reminders. I post every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. I try to keep it consistent, and I also post on Instagram with updates of future builds. I usually show the pictures of what I'm actually building, so you don't have to sit there and listen to hints. And this week it didn't have a hint because you already knew what I was building, so that was easy. But speaking of hints, let's drop one now for next week. And now that you have that hint, let's see if you can guess what it is. But as I always say, you know, hit me up on Instagram. You got any ideas for builds? Let me know. I had one comment that suggested I built the Bugatti one that I couldn't pronounce very well. And I actually already did. You know, great minds think alike. So sometimes if you have an idea like, hey, I haven't seen this on your channel, why don't you give this a try? I'll check it out. And it doesn't have to be just Lego. I do blue bricks. I did all kinds of other ones, including that Destiny Ghost one we don't like talking about because it wasn't pleasant at all. A lot worse than this. But yeah, just shoot me an idea. Give me a comment. You know, I'll try to respond within 24 hours. That's what I usually try to do. And I love hearing from you and hearing your opinions on these builds. Anyways, blabbing on too long. So have a good week. I'll catch you next Friday and keep building.